Hey,
Hey, how are you?
doing all right.
Yeah,
Still, we're always, I feel like we're just stuck in the same rooms. Are people gonna,
exactly. It's like there's our background. I need to play
and
around with different backgrounds, like
yeah,
some people do like beach scenes and stuff like
I
that.
feel
I
like
need,
I'm too late to it now, though,
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Hopefully we'll be
Um,
done with this soon.
but, I am thankful for this because the conversations that we were having at the office in the hallways and everything, I am still able to have these kind of face-to-face meetings with with our staff, um, about issues that just come up every day.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
staff ranges from really new to really seasoned,
Hmm.
and we just get really good questions all the time. But one that has been coming up again, I'm sure it won't be any surprise to you, is about frequency of
Hmm.
services
Hmm.
and like
Hmm.
reducing services.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that, that's not something I learned in
yeah,
school a lot
yeah,
about. It
yeah.
was like, oh, you're a speech path. You see people twice a week for 30 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, but now, as we've had this company for pushing 15 years, I think that we've learned that it is a much more complex thing to consider,
Yeah,
when we're recommending services
yeah.
either at the initial point of evaluation, or, clients come up for a reeval and we're looking at that past year of progress or however long it might have been that the progress we're looking at, um,
Yeah, that's funny that
and
you bring that
recommending that.
up. Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up because I was just talking with students in a pediatrics course over the last couple weeks, and we go through like a myth versus truth kind of thing. And one of them
Mhm,
was, insurance companies, Medicaid should determine, your frequency.
mhm.
So like 30 sessions a year, or you can get this many sessions. And, they're like, okay, well, that makes sense, and I said, well, no, like if I mean,
I'm, like,
they,
sitting here shaking my
well,
head like,
yeah, and
"No!"
they have their limits, but really we need to think about, when we just go by what the insurance companies say, then it takes away our skilled service. It takes away
Right.
our ability to look at each individual situation and think about those things like history.
Like the factors. Yes.
Yeah, how long has that
History.
child been receiving services? And what's the family capacity? Like
Mhm.
what are they able to do right now? Like what are
Their
their needs
age,
right
even
now?
something
The
as basic
students'
as their
age.
age,
Yeah.
you know?
Sometimes
Um,
diagnosis is a piece of it too.
I think, yes, is there
Um,
any underlying factors there that might be
mhm.
playing into it? Is this a kid, we've talked a lot about, you and I, with, different training series, episodic care
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and block
Hmm.
scheduling and things like that. And that's kind of, it's not a super new idea,
No.
but
Mm-mm,
it's,
mm.
how we know it takes, how long does it take for evidence to go in action? Don't they say
17
that,
years
like,
or something like that.
yeah. So you can find a lot of evidence about episodic care, or some people are referring to that as like block scheduling and
Uh-huh.
things.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but it's not a common practice yet. And it's something, especially for those populations that might have more of a lifelong need for a
Yeah.
service here and
Yeah.
there, um,
And it's
that we look
trickier,
at.
it's
Oh,
trickier
it's so
when
complex.
it's so hard
Yeah.
whenever you have, you see kids on certain days of the week, and maybe you are in the school someday. Like it's harder to do that. But figuring out, I mean, I think that's where we have to be somewhat creative and flexible with our scheduling. Because I think about a lot of times when families first come to the clinic, maybe their child is just having some challenges at the time, or they just received a diagnosis, or
Mhm.
whatever the reason is many times when families come initially,
Mhm.
there's more motivation, so you can kind
Mhm.
of build on that momentum in the beginning,
Mhm.
and looking at maybe doing some of the episodic care, like I'm going to do more intense in the beginning, and then I'm going to fade and see how those skills are maintained. And then, if they are maintained, great. If not, do we need to build it back up again? Do we need to decrease? What do we need to do? But that's where our skilled service comes in. Is
Exactly.
thinking about those situations and thinking of when we need to do more and when we need to do less, and not just thinking that this child has OT the rest of their life, for
Right.
once or twice a week. Like really looking at each individual situation and making that recommendation. Not to say it's always going to, get paid. I mean, there might be some situations where you make your recommendation And then we look at what's your coverage, and we kind of look at that, but really, really looking at all those components when we're making our recommendation about frequency of
Well,
service.
and I think, you talked about the funding agencies and
Uh-huh.
like what they, their caps are and everything. The other thing to consider is that every funder, every insurer, whether, and I think something people forget is that Medicaid and Medicare are insurers too.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
you know, that all of these insurers have medical necessity policies.
mhm,
And
mhm,
most of those that we cover that in a 1 hour training that we do, as well as hitting
mhm.
on it in every single documentation course we go
Mhm.
to from there on, is that you're supposed to do the most with the least.
Yeah.
So you're talking about looking back at your data and using your data to say,
Mhm,
was progress made at a lower increment of services, at a
mhm,
lower frequency of services? And if so, we need to real if we need more, if we really feel as the professional that we need more, we have to rationalize that in the
yeah,
documentation
yeah,
as to why. And it can't just be because I think they'd do better,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And I've
You
also
you have to
seen,
give some
yeah,
good data on
yeah.
that.
I've also seen some therapists who's at our company, and struggle with like some clients that they've seen for a long time,
Hmm.
and who are making kind of slow, steady progress,
Hmm.
and justifying the need, or to continue or reduce or increase. And so what we've talked about, with them, is that sometimes you don't know if you're needed until you don't perform the service. And
Hmm.
so we kind of talk them through about, okay, well, let's see, if you're really um kind of your impact is, if you don't see this child for 3 weeks, what happens?
Hmm.
Like, that is a good way to justify that you need to continue, or to look at, maybe I don't need to continue, maybe I need to
Right.
discharge, or I need to
Hmm.
reduce. Because if they're able to maintain when you're not coming on a regular basis, then you're not maybe needed in that capacity anymore. And so that's another thing that I think we really have to think about, is we don't know if we're needed sometimes until we're not there.
Right.
But kind of looking at that too. And I think the big piece with all this is just that, don't make it just black and white. Don't make it like this is what everybody gets. Like, we need to keep using our brains. And I know that's
Right.
hard. It's exhausting sometimes. And it's hard for me, like, and because there's this model out there of this is just what therapists do. But I think if we let that determine everything, it's putting us in a position that's hard to justify what we do.
Right, because when you see therapists requesting the same number of units over and over and over again, it does leave payers to ask the question of, well, why, like,
Yeah.
where is your skill in asking for that?
Yeah.
You know? So I just think these are really good questions. And this is one I feel like every time we get new hires
Yeah.
in like their first year, or those new grads in that maybe
Mhm.
have never heard these concepts before, we hear this question come up. It's one that I have more than
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
count,
Because it's hard. It's not
um,
easy. It's
it's
not.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
think that that's what we all want, is like, well,
Yeah.
just tell me how
Yeah.
to do it. And you're not individualizing care if you're not looking at every single case different,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they all have different factors. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great talk
yeah,
today.
it's good to see
It's,
you.
good to see you virtually.
Right.
Maybe someday we'll get back in person again.
Exactly. Oh,
So,
I long for those days.
yes. So, all righty. Well, have a good day, and I'll talk to you
You
later.
too.
Bye.
Bye.